Those of us who live in civilization, we have one car.
That's right. Well, but again, one car. Again, it's Colorado's working families, and this fee right now, as it's proposed, the governor has proposed two different fees. A fee for the bridge and structure fee, I'm not quite sure what he's calling it, and then a fee for ongoing maintenance needs for a total of $250 million roughly generated every year through fees. Republicans have come up with a number of alternative ideas to this. We believe that we ought to use first existing revenue. When you're facing economic tough times, you don't go out and spend even more. We ought to say, all right, how do we make better use of existing dollars that we have and put that into transportation? We think that severance tax dollars should be a part of the solution. We think that finding new resources within existing resources has got to be a key, and that's what we're offering.
I got to agree 100%. I mean, we've got a governor who's traveling to Japan right now on these international junkets trying to convince international business to invest in Colorado at a time when the credit markets are frozen everywhere. It makes no sense. We've got a governor who's putting solar powered energy on top of the Capitol, on top of the governor's mansion, that's not going to pay itself off probably in 14 years. These moves do not make sense. And if there's waste there, we know there's waste everywhere.
I'll talk a little bit about property rights as well. This is, I know RTD, surprise, I know this is going to be a surprise for you, is in a lot of financial trouble, and their FasTracks proposal is not happening on time or on budget, and the revenues coming in are going down. But on the bright side, since there's a worldwide recession, the cost of materials is going down. That's helping them out some. And they're also praying
they're
that
only
Obama,
$2 billion over budget now.
Yeah, exactly. And they're actually, I wish they were only $2 billion. No, there's still more than that. You know, they're hoping and praying that Obama will bless them with packets of love from D.C. to help them out. But RTD is still doing takings. We still have people who don't know if their homes will be taken. We still have property rights throughout. What's going on in the property rights area?
Again, I mean, you go back to our basic rights, our founding principles as a nation. They start with property rights, the ability of somebody to own their property free from government interference, free from knowing that government could come in and take their land. You go back into the 2005-2006 year when we had the Kelo decision by the United States Supreme Court that said, yeah, go ahead and condemn somebody's land, and it can be turned into a private shopping development. It can be turned into a private housing development. We've seen what used to be required, a public use, a very tight nexus, again, going back to the word nexus, a very tight consideration of what is a public use by a public entity to really anything goes. And we saw it in Colorado. We saw it this year with the Telluride land use decision where the Colorado Supreme Court allowed a home rule town to condemn land outside of its jurisdiction.
Now, this one was amazing. This one said, Telluride can reach outside of Telluride and condemn land that isn't even in their even in their boundaries. Now, this was one of your favorites.
Yeah, we talked about this on the show, and the precedent is so damning. And while a lot of the liberals in Telluride were happy that they preserved what is really a beautiful valley floor out there, there's nothing now to stop Denver from taking Aurora's property, or even, and there may be some issues with county by county extraterritorial condemnation, but I think it's going to be litigated. And given the precedent set, we face dangerous times when governments are going to start condemning each other.
Right. What are you following as far as property rights?
Well, on Saturday, I was at a property rights meeting in Lakewood with close to 100 property owners who had received condemnation notices from RTD. Now, these are people who are, at least in theory, in the path of RTD's westward light rail expansion. But what we're finding is that a lot of these property owners aren't, in fact, in the way of RTD's light rail. They're a block away, or even 2 blocks away.
If I remember, and I had a little bit to do with RTD, you know, a train is 10 feet wide, 2 trains, 20 feet wide, maybe 20 feet wide, 25 feet wide, I don't know, when you run some tracks, except when there's a station. How much land do they need to run that line?
Well, this is an interesting question, because we know that RTD can take property for temporary staging. And what RTD is saying is we're going to condemn this property and take fee title for temporary staging. And then
that means a place to put the bulldozers at night.
Wow. And then after that, put in another public use, which would be a 1,000-car parking garage. This is just one case in Lakewood. But what they're not mentioning is that their development proposals, which have been made publicly available, or been obtained publicly, not been made publicly available, show that RTD actually plans to put in mixed-use development. So this means RTD can take somebody's property and then turn over at least a portion, or maybe even all of it, after that temporary staging.
Is there a bill to deal with this?
That would be up to Corey. We're hearing lots about 4 different possible bills. I think it's still definitely in the talks
Anything in there
right
that's
now.
going to protect homeowners?
Well, again, absolutely. I think we have to make sure, we have to tighten what qualifies as a public use. I think any time where you're talking about a mixed-use development, you're condemning it for one thing, then it sort of moves into and metamorphoses into another thing. That's simply wrong, and we should address that immediately. I also think we've got to do everything we can to adjust the compensation. Homeowners aren't being given the compensation. Homeowners, landowners, anybody whose land is condemned aren't given the compensation that they are
Fair
due.
market value.
They are not being made whole, and that's a
That's right.
tragedy. It is a tragedy.
right.
You have small business owners in one of the worst economic crises this country has faced, and they can't even afford to go open a new business. We're destroying commerce here.
Right. Well, we've got a couple minutes left. You pulled an interesting little PR stunt. I loved it. It was a letter to the Chief Justice, Mary Malarkey, here in Colorado Supreme Court. And Colorado Supreme Court has a reputation of being one of the nation's most partisan Supreme Courts on a state level. And it's hard to deny that. And you wanted her, when she addressed the state legislature, to address that. And you came on the radio program, we talked about it and listed off several of the decisions that her court has made. She didn't mention anything when she came down to speak, did she?
No, she did not. And every 2 years, when the new General Assembly starts after the election in November, a new General Assembly is sworn in, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court will address the legislature in what's known as the Chief Justice's State of the Judiciary speech. And I thought, what a great time to hear from the chief of our judiciary system what exactly is going on, and to address some very real concerns that we're seeing in terms of manipulation, what we believe is to be manipulation of opinions.
Such as the what?
Well, a number of cases. Going back to the Telluride land grab decision, obviously that's the Colorado Kilo case right there. Going back to the mill levy freeze, the decision to delay and uphold any kind of decision on an unconstitutional property tax increase. Going back as far as the redistricting decision in 2002, 2003, where the judges, this is amazing. Remember how much trouble Dick Cheney got into for declaring himself to be a senator or being a part of the legislative branch, how much the liberal media gave him a big black eye for that? Well, the Colorado Supreme Court, declared themselves to be part of the legislative branch as well, and I didn't see anybody saying, boy, you can't do that.
All right, so did Mary Malarkey address these concerns?
Not at all. Not at all. She sent me a letter saying the opinions speak for themselves.
And they do indeed.
What does that mean?
Well, I think we've seen an incredible liberal bias, especially with property rights. It has been so damaging to people across the state of Colorado, and there are going to be repercussions felt for years and years, generations perhaps.
All right, got it. Less than a minute here. Big surprise is going to come out of this session? Give me one thing we can look forward to.
Well, again, I think we can look forward to some tough choices being made, and I hope we make this budget a smoother process. We make government more efficient. We eliminate some of the programs that need to go away. That'll be a big surprise to me, because I think there's a lot of resistance to making government work better.
Any surprises you see coming?
Hopefully some Republican victories along the way. It's about time.
What kind of Republican? We're in the minority. This is a great place. Republicans are great in the minority because they don't have to lead.
If Republicans can come up with a solid transportation plan, I think they can really make some inroads with voters.
That's right.
Dream on, sister. Dream on. All right. Cory Gardner, always good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Jessica, Cory, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Why don't you join us on the Independence Institute Network? Go to independenceinstitute.org. Tell a friend. We'll see you next week.
You jabba jab, bamboozle, nuka noozle, bippity bop, she called. You jabba jab, bamboozle, nuka noozle, bippity bop, she called. I mean, you keep on talking, but you don't know where to turn it off.